What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Action Network podcast presented by BetMGM, the king of sportsbook. I'm your host, Chris Raybon of the Action Network, and today we've got our NFL Player Projections podcast for week number 14. We're going to run through our top 5 players at each skill position, discuss players we're especially high and low on this week, and of course, throw out a player prop for each position. Here to break it down with me, one of the top rankers in the game, the odds maker, Sean Kerner. Sean, what's going on?
What's up? Hanging in there, but doing good. How about you?
Yeah, same here. Hanging in there. This is a packed week. We got 30. Just got through projecting 30 teams.
Yeah.
So we haven't had to do that for a while.
Cardinals and Commanders are on bye. They're the last teams on bye, right?
So, well, the two teams at the opposite end of the alphabet. The Cardinals are
the
first
I noticed
team in
that.
my spreadsheet. And
very convenient.
The last. So yeah, I wonder if that was intentional by the schedule makers. But yeah, we got everyone else. We got some quarterback injuries we got to get to. It's a lot going on this week. So let's get right into it. Start with QB. Who do you have in your top 5 for week number 14?
Pretty typical. I got Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and Josh Allen.
Yep. Hurts, Prescott, Mahomes, Jackson, Allen.
There we go.
I don't think we've exact matched in a while.
Yeah, that's bizarre.
I feel like as I tinker, I might have to flip Prescott and Hurts though, because Prescott, is like Dallas since the bye. I think they're playing a little different, and so once I kind of adjust for that,
you mean throwing more?
Yeah, they're throwing more in early downs. Brandon Cooks getting him a lot more involved. Not putting Gallup on the field as much. Kind of splitting the reps with Tolbert. I really like what they've done since the bye. But they just look unstoppable right now. And this Eagle defense has proven it is not in top form right now.
Correct.
It may just not be all year because they got guys healthy and they're still getting torched by good teams. So who do you got? Who are you high on?
So assuming Derek Carr ends up missing this week, I'm high on Jameis Winston. I have him as my QB 16 right now, which puts him in play for, the streaming discussion this week. It's a great matchup against the Panthers too. I mean, there is some risk. His upside is going to be capped in what should be a more, run heavy leading game script. But I still think Winston could make a few big plays. Potentially has, a multi-touchdown game here. He has plenty of weapons at his disposal, and it'll be even better if Rashid Shaheed can return this week. So I always love Winston whenever he's starting, but I think he could be an upgrade over Carr. So if he does start, he has a good game, there's a chance, he gets another start after that, even once Carr's healthy. So if you're really hurting at quarterback, you can stash him this week, and you might get more than 1 week out of him. But I do like his upside here against the Panthers.
Yeah, what a surprise. Derek Carr struggling. What a surprise. First year.
Yeah, who would have guessed that?
Dennis Allen struggling. What a surprise. But yeah, I think you're right. Like he's my QB 15. So yeah, I'm actually
a little bit higher than me.
A little bit higher.
Nice.
But yeah, assuming Derek Carr misses, I think there's a lot of bad spots this week just because it's a lot of weather, a lot of backups, and then tough matchups. So getting this Carolina team indoors for Jameis, definitely not the worst. Not the worst thing. I am high on Jake Browning against the Indianapolis Colts. He's the ECR QB 20. He is my QB 13. And listen, there's going to be weather throughout the week, so that is something to pay attention to, especially when you're looking for a streaming quarterback. But at this point, Jake Browning going up against pretty mediocre Indianapolis Colts defense with his full complement of weapons, Chase, Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Mixon played well on Monday night. Chase Brown got involved in a run game. So like that offense looks better. He's throwing a lot of short passes for the most part. I think he completed 32 of 37 against the Jaguars, and Jaguars were a top 5 defense by DVOA entering that Monday night game. So it was impressive. And, I think he's a guy we have to pay attention to now because, he showed promise. The eye test didn't look terrible and the numbers didn't even look terrible, but that, like, a lot of it was hard to handicap because I think he had 3 deflections against Pittsburgh that ended up in the hands of Jamar Chase instead of the defense. And then he also threw a really bad interception in the red zone against Pittsburgh. But, it seems like he kind of looked at the film, made some adjustments, and came out firing against a really good defense and played really well. So, he can run a little bit. He's got great weapons. The only thing is the weather could be a factor. We're looking at winds in the double digits, and there is a chance of rain as well as we record this on Tuesday. So monitor that. But that's true of pretty much half the league, and so that just kind of brings you back here to Jake Browning. So I have him QB 13. I think he's another guy that's kind of in that streamer discussion as well.
Yeah, he's my QB 14. You mentioned that he does have rushing upside too. He hasn't really needed to tap into that as much, but yeah, I wish this Jake Browning showed up when I had them plus 2.5 against the Steelers. But I mean, he looked really good last night. I think it was a Tanner Hudson completion where it looked like he was open, but he had to put some nice touch on it, like over a linebacker and lead him. And it was just a perfect throw. He had so many throws that he looked like a seasoned vet. So yeah, I think, he's looking good. He has one of the best wide receiver groups in the league. So he's definitely in that streamer discussion this week, and we'll have to check the weather. But right now, he's right there on that cusp for me.
Yeah, and we've seen this like time and time again, especially this year, where even if these guys ultimately fizzle out, these backup quarterbacks can put together a 2, 3, 4 game stretch. We saw Josh Dobbs do it. Even DeVito, is kind of coming alive a little bit. And then also guys are just improving. Like we're seeing Jordan Love, really start to improve. So definitely a guy to monitor. And who knows? I mean, he could. The Bengals aren't. Their matchups down the stretch. They have to win every game, so they're going to be firing. They're not going to just kind of come out and bullshit and try to run the ball. Like they're going to have to play to win from here on out. Everything's a must win for them. So maybe this is a league winner. Who knows? But definitely have to monitor him. And yeah, if you need a streamer, not the worst option. But who you want?
Unfortunately, it's CJ Stroud. He's my QB 13 open the week. This is just a tough matchup against the Jets. And to make matters worse, our boy Tank Dell just had that devastating injury, likely season ending. Yeah, pour one out for Tank Dell. He also might be without Dalton Schultz again. We'll have to wait and see on that. So it's a game where, the Texans might not have to put up many points either to win this game. They can lean on the run game. Their defense is looking a lot better. This is another game where there could be some potential ugly weather. So he opens up my week as my QB 13. So he's on the sit-start fringe. Obviously, if you have him, you're probably going to play him because, watch, he'll still end up with 300 yards and 4 touchdowns somehow because he's so freaking good. But just at least the underlying factors, it's not looking good for him to open the week. So that's why I'm just a tad lower on him than usual here.
Oh, no, definitely. I think that's perfectly warranted here against a good Jet defense. And, Tank Dell, the kind of ripple effect of that, we'll have to see because some of his lowest yardage games have been the ones Tank Dell has missed this year. So, yeah, it could definitely be an issue because now the defense gets to pay more attention to Nico Collins. And with Dalton Schultz out, you can kind of load up on Nico Collins and you can even start paying some attention to Noah Brown. And now you're leaving it up to like Robert Woods and John Mechie, who I don't know if they're obviously not at the same level. No one really was as Dell, except Nico was kind of there too. But yeah, so this could really kind of knock down his numbers a little bit. I'm sure this is a winnable game for them. But yeah, I don't know if he has to put up his usual 300 to do it. So I'm right there with you. I am low on Jared Goff this week. He's my QB 16. He's the QB 12 in consensus. And another guy who, most weeks, he's a guy you're not really thinking too hard about starting. Good Detroit offense, usually playing indoors. But this week, they're playing outdoors in a division game. So you have to temper expectations a little. This year, Goff, 8.1 yards an attempt indoor, 6.9 outdoor, 2.3 total touchdowns per game indoors, just 1 total touchdown per game outdoors. And for his career, we've seen the same thing, with Detroit, dating back to 2021, indoors 68% completion percentage, outdoors 64, indoors 7.4 yards an attempt, indoor 6.9. So he loses a half a yard per attempt when he goes outdoors. And then his touchdown rate here, he gets cut in half, 5.3% indoors, 2.8% outdoors. And this is, a over 2.5 year sample here. So it's a pretty large sample. And you could go back and look at his Rams numbers and it's the same story. But, also worth noting that this total of 41 for the Lions in this Bears game, that's the lowest of the year for Detroit. So right now we're seeing like just under a 40% chance of rain in the forecast, winds around 20 miles per hour, just not ideal passing conditions. And again, this is kind of the story around a lot of the outdoor games this week throughout the league. So, but Goff seems to get affected more than most quarterbacks. And you also have, division game. You saw the Bears held the Vikings to, 10 points a couple of weeks ago. Their defense playing a little better, especially with Montez Sweat. So Jared Goff on that kind of fringe for me this week, deeper league start only.
Yeah, I have my QB 18. I'm even lower than you, but I'm already factoring that weather and like you said, the low team total. That'll do it for someone like Goff.
All right, for the prop, I went 2-0 last week. You went 1-1. Let's go. Let's go. CJ Stroud. I think this is a really interesting one because not only do you have a very strong Jets pass defense, not only do you have potential inclement weather in MetLife Stadium, but you also, as we just talked about, you have no Tank Dell, and you may be missing your tight end as well. So Stroud, I think he's going to have gone the whole year now, really never having his top 4 receivers healthy at the same time.
Brutal.
Yeah, brutal. So passing yards against the Jets, I'm going to go with 244.5.
Ooh, a little bit higher than me. Initially I had like 240, but factoring in the weather and stuff, I went 232.5. So I'm gonna have to go under.
Ooh, okay. I still have it in the high 240s. So
fading CJ Stroud this year has not been a profitable endeavor. So I'm really going against that here, but all the factors lead to him not having to throw as much here. So I'll take the under, but I don't like it.
All right, let's go to running back. Who you got in top 5?
All right, let's see. I got Christian McCaffrey. No surprise there. Then Zach Moss, Devon Achane, Alvin Kamara, and Josh Jacobs.
I got McCaffrey, Moss, Kamara, Eckler, Jacobs. Achane has been a tough one to project because he had, I think, like 5 touches in the first half of that game against Washington, and then got like all of the touches in the second half, but they were up 24. So, I don't know. I'm kind of projecting a 50-50 split until I can maybe dig in and see if there's any way to project it better, but it's really tough with him. But I initially did have him third when I just used his straight up usage from last week, but then I knocked it down a little just because he really didn't play as much in the first half. But yeah, I feel you. I mean, he could Devon Achane with 10 touches could be the RB.
Yeah, so. And it's a tough matchup against the Titans.
Yeah, but no Jeffrey Simmons. No Jeffrey Simmons.
So yeah. I mean, that's massive. That's massive. And either way, an explosive run for him can make up for that. For the selling point for me was just his receiving usage. I always thought of him as like a pass catching back. So 64% routes run rate. That's why I think he's so high for me. I do agree. I think it's more of a 50-50 split on early downs, but his efficiency, his underlying efficiency is just too good right now. Yeah,
I'll probably end up back with him in my top 5 because it's just fun, and like he's a guy. It's hard for him to disappoint.
Join me. The water is warm over here.
Yeah, no, I literally had him number 3, and then I was like, because I kind of when I start my process, for everyone out there that I kind of for a guy who like just returned like Achan and
Yeah.
he's been out a few weeks, you kind of just okay, let's see what they did last week. Kind of use that as the baseline, and yeah, he was my RB3, and then I started looking into the splits, and I was like, oh man, well he only had like 9 scrimmage yards at the half on 5 touches or something.
Yeah, actually, to be fair, I'll probably be closer to you, or like we'll probably meet in the middle. Because like I said, I just like to let it ride on Tuesday morning. That's how we get like Ramondre Stevenson RB1. Although I think I left it there last year, but I like to have fun with it. And yeah, I'll probably tone it down a little bit because I didn't realize he didn't see as much work in the first half. But either way, love him this week.
Yeah, he's my RB9, so it's not like I'm not too far. Not too far.
Yeah.
Who are you high on?
Joe Mixon, just because I want to talk about him. He's my RB12, and he's had some concerning usage over the past few weeks, which is it's not ideal considering he's not efficient enough to afford any sort of running back by committee here. So, last night on Monday Night Football, we saw Chase Brown eat into his early down work and looked really good doing it. I thought he was kind of a sneaky rookie back this year, hasn't seen much work. Looked really good doing it, 9 carries, 61 yards. So he could, continue to eat into that usage. But Mixon still had a really good game on the ground, 19 carries for 68 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's still, the goal line back. And just with Jake Browning playing at a high level, we're both high on him this week. If he can keep that up, that's going to allow Mixon to thrive as if, Joe Burrow was still under center. And Trevion Williams had been eating into his, passing down usage recently. But last night, Mixon had a season-high route participation and went off for 6 catches, 49 yards. Jags play a ton of zone, and that's where Mixon thrives as a pass catcher. And now he's facing a Colts team that plays zone at the highest rate in the league. So I think he'll get there with receiving usage. He'll still see plenty of work on the ground, including goal line carries. So even if this trend of Chase Brown seeing more touches on early downs continues, I think Mixon will still be a low-end RB1 this week. So it's been very conflicting thoughts and, things to look at with Mixon. But as of now, I think we could trust him as a low-end RB1 here.
Yeah, I think what happened was you saw a kind of shifting of the roles on Monday night. It used to be, Mixon was getting, most of the early down work, and then they would try to find someone to moonlight on third downs, kind of like Pirine during that Super Bowl year, where Pirine wasn't playing a ton most weeks, but he was coming in on a lot of passing downs. But then now it looks like they've switched it up a little bit, and they said, okay, let's kind of give Mixon his rest on early downs, and it was like a 2-to-1 split Mixon to Brown on early downs. But then, as you mentioned, Mixon getting pretty much all the passing down work. Because Trevion Williams kind of demoted to third string, and I guess they don't really trust Brown in the passing game as much. So as long as that continues, which it probably will, because Brown showed well in the run game, I think that'll continue. I think you'll see Mixon, his carry share, take a little bit of a hit, but as you mentioned, I think his route participation will be in the 65 to 75% range, whereas for the season it's been in that more like 50 to 60% range. So. Yeah, I think that's because they Taylor did mention they want to kind of figure out how to get the running game going, and Brown did help in that aspect. So yeah, I would expect this is a situation where I would kind of expect similar usage to last week, like to just the last week versus the entire season. I think we saw switching of the guard. Yeah,
looking at my rookie notes, I had my comp for Chase Brown, a beefed up Phillip Lindsay. So that's what I think about him. I think he's got some pop, and he's pretty big, 215-pound back, so he's got some explosiveness. So I wasn't shocked to see him thrive when he finally got a shot last night.
Yeah, it was what the Bengals offense did, that Jags defense was number 1 in DVOA against the run coming in, top 5 in defense overall. And the Bengals had success on the air, in the ground, and through the air.
Yeah,
with a back.
No, just solid coaching plan, like just all around great game plan by the Bengals.
Yeah, and I think Zach Taylor was previously, I think it was like 4-20 on the road without Burrow or something, or 4-20 straight up overall without Burrow or something. So yeah, it was just everything you would expect just did not happen.
Right.
But no, promising for the Bengals.
Yeah.
I'm high on Ezekiel Elliott. It sounds disgusting, but he's the RB 29 in consensus. He's my RB 17. And he might actually get a little higher if, right now he's been limited in practice. So I usually dock just a couple of percent of efficiency when a guy is limited and, doesn't get upgraded to full. So we'll see. Recording this Tuesday. They got a couple more practices before the Thursday night game, but Ramondre Stevenson is almost certain to miss here. Mm-hmm. And Zeke played 70% of the snaps in that last game against the Chargers, 94% of the non-Stevenson snaps. So I think it was, Ty Montgomery, who's been playing mostly receiver, played 3 snaps of running back, and that was it. Zeke had, 40-odd snaps. Beyond that, he had 21 touches. And I do expect JaMycal Hasty to be active in this game. So right now I'm projecting Zeke to play to kind of seed the third down passing game work to some combination of Montgomery and Hasty. But I still expect Zeke to get almost all of the early down carries. So I'm still projecting Zeke for, above 15 touches in this game. Pittsburgh has been somewhat of a run funnel defense, 15th in DVOA against the run, but 6th against the pass. And with this Patriot team, we've seen it with Ramondre, and we saw it with Zeke even against the Chargers. They scored no points, but Zeke still had 17 carries, and then he also caught 4 balls for 40 yards. So the Patriots, most of their receivers are banged up. I think Parker was limited in practice. Juju Smith-Schuster got a knee injury. Pop Douglas still is in protocol. It's been a disaster. Yeah, Kayshon Boutte is he was hurt missed last game. Tyquan Thornton is like on a milk carton, even though he's on the field. It's rough. It's rough. But
hey, what happened with Mike Gesicki? I mean, not that it matters.
They've dialed his role back because Farrell Brown is a better run blocker, and again, they just need to run their offense through running backs at this point.
Yeah,
they have no choice. So, Gesicki's not really seeing the field as much because we know, as you pointed out, I think heading into last year when people were still pretty high on him, this dude can't run block, and so. Eventually he's going to get taken off the field. And we saw this with Jonnu Smith too, and I'm not saying Jonnu Smith is anywhere as near as bad a run blocker as Gesicki, but this Patriot team is like they sign these guys in free agency who are athletic, pass catching tight ends. And then they remember that they have no passer. And then they're like, I guess I got to bench him. Yep. So, we digress. But yeah, Zeke Elliott, I think he's going to get a ton of volume. There's a chance he sees 94% of the non-Stevenson snaps again. I mean, the fact that they acquired Hasty and then, healthy scratched him 2 or 3 weeks in a row. And Montgomery is technically a running back, but they have him playing receiver the whole year until now. So there's a chance you could get a 90 to 100% snap rate for Zeke Elliott in a game where they should be able to use a running back. I mean, the total is 30. This is like, have we seen lower totals in this year? Like, I don't remember ever seeing multiple games below 37 even. And now we've gotten, we're going below 34 for a lot of these last few years.
Bad quarterbacks.
Yeah, bad quarterbacks. And
Yeah. So he doesn't have much touchdown equity here, but volume is king at running back. So he's a low end RB2. He's dollar store Zach Moss. That's who he is.
Yeah, he's
going to see every touch. Well, maybe not every.
And the Patriots. I have the Patriots projected for a half a touchdown or 1 touchdown for their 12 points that I'm pretty. Yeah. So no, it's not good. He's projected to get half of that. So
yeah. If they somehow end up in a goal line situation, which is a big if, he's getting the touch there.
Yeah.
So
don't underestimate Pittsburgh just screwing up royally.
True.
This is what they do. We saw it last week against Arizona. It's what Pittsburgh does. They win the games. They win the games they're supposed to lose, and they lose the games they're supposed to win. But yeah, Zeke Elliott, RB2 for me this week. I wouldn't be scared to go there, even though it's kind of a hold your nose play. Who you going?
Travis Etienne. Yep. He's my RB25. ECR has him RB6. We have to not. we can't view him as high end RB1 right now because, obviously the Jags pass catchers all take a massive hit with Lawrence missing time. But ETN as well. I mean, he needs the Jags offense to be good, get them in scoring position, prevent the defense from stacking the box. So he has a lot of things going against him. Plus, after seeing just that massive workload, weeks 1 through 5, I think he led the NFL in touches. They've really tried to ease him up a little bit because his efficiency has taken a big hit. He's only averaging 3.3 yards a carry since then. And he's been banged up. He's dealing with injuries and things like that. So I just view him as a low-end RB2 here. It's a brutal matchup against, the Browns. So, yeah, we really have to downgrade ETN. Obviously, you're probably still playing him, but we really have to lower expectations for him going forward, and especially this week against the Browns.
Yeah, absolutely. It's also, don't forget that the guy he's been ceding touches to is D'Ernest Johnson, who is a former Brown. #revenge game. It's about to get popping. Tank Bigsby, sorry, bro. I don't know what happened to you. You shouldn't have fumbled on that in week 1 or whatever.
Yeah, in week 1. That's been it for him.
But since this is a projection pod, let's talk some projection logic real quick. So when there's like the first game of a backup quarterback for a team like the Jaguars, who I have, I think we kind of project similarly, kind of look at pass rate over expected. And the Jaguars are pretty close to league average, maybe like 1% or 2 above. How are you adjusting their pass rate for the backup quarterback? Like, do you just leave it at the team level, or do you like knock it down at all? Do you use like pass data, or what do you do there?
Oh yeah, no, I'm absolutely adjusting it. I think that in a neutral game script, they're definitely going to want to be more run heavy now. And we're assuming it's CJ Beathard, right? There's a chance.
Yep.
Nathan Rourke could start though. I don't know, but either way, the Jags will definitely want to be more run heavy. But it's more likely that they do get into a trailing game script. Now, the Browns, who knows there, but the fact that what are they right now? 3-point dogs. I haven't looked at
So it's it's like that's what I'm asking because actually no, it's like 1.5. It's the Browns. Okay. It's because you're talking about backup quarterbacks on both sides.
Yeah.
But that's why I asked because I mean it's still projected to be a fairly neutral game script. So the question is how much do you adjust Beathard's like their pass rate over expected with Beathard versus Lawrence. I have it just like around league average, whereas like they were like a couple of points above with Lawrence. But I was just curious because I would even it out.
Yeah, I would say they're going to be below average in pass rate. But again, that's in a neutral game script. So yeah, this week maybe it is a neutral game script, and that'll help ETN. I think that if there is more volume, they're probably going to give D'Ernest Johnson a little bit more work. I think they really are trying to limit ETN where they can. So I still. To get ahead of myself, this is my prop, ETN total rushing and receiving yards. So I don't want to, say where I'm at necessarily yet.
I got you.
But I do think he will see plenty of volume on the ground. Maybe he'll see, more dump offs. So he could see more passing work here. But the Jaguars team total right now is 13.5. So for me, it's the touchdown upside. Taking a hit, that's probably the biggest blow to ETN. Who's seen, a ton of like short yardage touchdowns this year.
James Cook for me, he is the RB19 in consensus. He's my RB31. And this is simply, kind of adjusting to, the new information with the new coordinator in a situation where the raw stats don't tell the story, but the percentage rate stats of how much of his usage do. So, James Cook, in terms of his, volume, he's been fine the last couple of weeks, with Ken Dorsey fired because the Bills have been running a lot of plays. He had, 20 touches in back-to-back weeks. So it looks like, if anything, he's on the rise, right? But when you look at his underlying usage with Ken Dorsey, 55% snap rate, 62% of the backfield carries. Without Dorsey, his snap rate drops from 55 to 45%. His percentage of the carries drops from 62 to 54, and his route participation rate with Dorsey 49%, without 34%. So, what did the Bills run, like 90 plays against Philadelphia
Yeah.
before that bye? And then, they were possessing the ball against the Jets as well, because, it's the Jets, and the Jets can't, the Jets really can't hold the ball. So they only had the ball for 23 minutes. The Bills had the ball for close to 37 minutes. So you saw a lot of plays in back-to-back weeks. Now you're playing a Kansas City Chiefs team that, not only do they have an offense that in theory could hold the ball, and probably, will more than usual, because they're not really getting the explosive plays this year at Kansas City, and their defense is also very good. So it could, if you see the Bills run closer to, 60 plays instead of whatever, like 80, 90, you're going to see a decrease in volume for Cook. And, I think some of the reason that his snap rate was lower was because there were so many plays. You don't want to tire the guy out and overwork him. But this was kind of a trend, for a while now. We saw Cook not really being treated as a true lead back, just more of like a 1A to Latavius Murray's 1B. And then once Dorsey was fired, they started mixing in Ty Johnson a lot more. So now you're talking about a three-way running back committee. So I think Cook is really risky, especially as a road underdog. I know it's a small spread, but as a road underdog against Kansas City, with Buffalo having a team total of just 22.5, which is pretty low for the Buffalo Bills. Kansas City favored by 2.5, the total 47.5. So it's one of those things where I think you really have to temper expectations. If you're in a 12 team, or you're probably still starting him as a flex, but I don't think he's an RB2 this week, and that's where the market is ranking him.
Yeah, for some reason I thought Ty Johnson had way more playing time than he did. He only played 12% of the snaps, but it was like they always put him in there in the high leverage situations. I think it was like 3rd and 1, they gave him the ball. So they obviously trust him, and there's a chance, right, that Leonard Fournette gets elevated at some point. So that would be interesting to see how they would use him. But either way, it looks like they don't want James Cook to be a workhorse back.
Yeah, exactly. And it's he still can. It's not going to necessarily, like, the upside is still there because he is an explosive back, but you're talking about floor, and a lot. I know it's getting close to playoff time. Think these next couple of weeks are going to decide a lot of things. So James Cook's floor, I think, is not being accounted for in the ranking. That's kind of what I'm getting at. But let's go. What do you got for me for ETN?
Well, I've had some time to think about it a little bit more. My final, let's go with this. My final prop for you is 78.5 rushing and receiving yards.
That sounds high. Ooh, that's good. That's actually good. I'm pretty close on average, but my median, that's kind of where my average is, but the median would knock it down a couple yards. So I'll go.
The median for like a combined rushing and receiving, it's probably going to be closer to your mean, because it allows for an explosive play in either the run or pass game. So it's probably closer to just whatever your rush and receiving projections add up to.
I mean, I'm still below because I'm at.
Oh, what did you have?
I'm at 77. So
nice.
I'm still going under, but that is a good line. But I do have him still projected for, like, I'm using kind of a mix of his season long and since the bye, where his carries have gotten way down, percent carries, that is. So I might have to adjust that down a little more, because now we have 4 games where he's 4 games straight. He's been under his season average of backfield carries. For the season, he's at 72%, but since the bye, 60%, 45%, 71%, and 58%. So when you have like 4 straight, you have to kind of adjust the underlying, prior baseline, whatever you want to call it. So either way, I'll go under. I mean, wouldn't be surprised. I mean, Cleveland's defense has been in shambles at times. For such a good defense, they'll have these just games where they just melt down and give up big plays. So again, I think you're on the right track with being low on him. And I think just like with Cook, it's the floor that's not being accounted for with a guy like ETN, because with the, if he's not playing his higher percentage of the snaps, obviously he's still capable of busting off an explosive play, scoring touchdowns, but he's also capable of, like 14 touches for 52 yards and no scores.
Yeah. And no scores, right? He's
Right.
been banking on touchdowns this year.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to wide receiver, top 5 for week 14. Who you got?
Tyreek Hill and CeeDee Lamb just right behind him. Then Michael Pittman, Keenan Allen, and AJ Brown.
Ooh, Michael Pittman. I like it. I like that.
Where do you at? Like, I'm surprised I don't have him third.
I've been in the top 10 on Mike for a while, but I don't have him top 5 yet. He's my wide receiver 10, but that's also because just a little bit of like I said, weather concerns in this one as well. But yeah, that's really.
At some point, his receiving prop has to be like 8.5. I think it was Keenan Allen's receptions prop was 8.5. I think Pittman's was 7.5. But I'm projecting him right around there, right around 8 receptions, which is a lot.
Okay, yeah, I'm a little bit lower this week. Like this week, I'm at 7.3. Dug into why, because I'm usually around 7.5, 8. Because like we've been talking about this every week. I think I had him in our lineup last week, in the DFS lineup we built.
Yep.
He's had so many 7-8 catch games. It's kind of flying under the radar a little bit. But yeah, he's my wide receiver 10 this week. But love the spicy wide receiver 3 call. I have Tyreek, CeeDee Lamb, Keenan Allen, Stephon Diggs. I'm surprised you said you got Diggs 5 or no?
No, I haven't had Diggs 5 for 3 weeks now.
Okay,
it broke my streak of like 27 weeks in a row.
Yes, I'm back to 4 with
5
Diggs.
exactly. Oh, interesting.
And then I got Amon-Ra number 5, and then there was somebody at 6 who was like right there. It was
for me. It's Waddle.
AJ. No, AJ's right there, and Jefferson was right there too. But for now, still going with Amon-Ra, but AJ, it's the Dallas defense is tough, and then Jefferson, it's just tough to project him with Dobbs. It's obviously not going to be as good as Cousins, so it's a little bit fluid right now. But yeah, I have Diggs 4, St. Brown 5. Who you hiring?
Jackson Smith-Njigba. Against the Niners, he's my wide receiver 36. And Debo in this game I'm high on too, but everybody is already playing him because it's just a phenomenal matchup for him. But I think this is also a great spot for JSN. He's been trending up since Seattle's Week 5 bye. Not only is he a rookie, and he's going to get better after the bye. He fractured his wrist right before Week 1, so I don't think he was healthy at the beginning of the season. He's been trending up. So last week he caught 7 balls for 62 yards. He had that potential touchdown, right? That I thought he caught it. Anyways.
What was that about?
Yeah, like he should have had a massive game. I thought that the you can use the ground to catch the ball. Anyways, he also tends to be better in trailing game scripts, or he gets more playing time because the Seahawks use more 11 personnel when they're trailing. So they're 14-point at least I think they're 14-point dogs here against the Niners. So he's probably going to see, close to 80% route participation. And in San Francisco, they have a good defense, but they do give up, passing yards in garbage time when we're up a couple scores. And they rank 21st in DVOA against number 3 receivers. He has the better matchup in the slot against Lenore. So he won't offer, wide receiver 2 upside as long as, Lockett and Metcalf are, healthy. But I think this week, he offers, sneaky low end wide receiver 3 flex sort of upside just based on the potential trailing game script. And, he was the top wide receiver draft in what's turned out to be just an amazing class. So I just think he's only going to get better. I just think this is one of those weeks where even though 30 teams are playing this week, I think we can trust him inside, close to the top 35 this week.
Oh yeah, you're definitely higher than me. I have him. I'm more in line with consensus. He's 45 in consensus. I have him 43, so I am a little higher. But I was higher on him last week only because I have noticed that he plays the best against man coverage teams, and Dallas is the most, like, they play the most man coverage. But I am still higher on him. I think he's still. I think he is still on the upswing. And this is
Yeah,
the
and I
time
think
you want to
a
invest in
note.
rookies.
Yeah, exactly. I think just worth noting that with all the weather this week,
Yeah.
this game looks like it does have perfect weather in Santa Clara. So I think he might move up your rankings just based on the downward adjustments you'll probably be making with all these receivers
Yeah,
playing
man.
in shit weather. That this game does look like a good weather game.
Yep, 61 degrees, partly cloudy, and only 8-mile-an-hour winds. So nothing to complain about there. And it's funny because I think I looked earlier today, and they were saying it was like patchy fog or something, but I guess that's out now. Like it's now it's saying it's
In
just
San
gonna be
Francisco.
now it's saying it's gonna be
Oh,
partly cloudy.
I don't think we could project fog 7 days.
I saw fog in the forecast. That's how I was like scratching my head. I was like, fog. It's like that. I could
think
see
that
if it was in
was
Seattle.
Yeah, and the Commander game, I think there was like pretty heavy fog early in the game, unless that was like fireworks at the beginning. I don't know, but it was pretty foggy. Like the weather wasn't great there, and it didn't matter. But yeah, San Francisco can be tricky with the fog. Although it's not even close to San Francisco. Santa Clara's like an hour away,
exactly.
but yeah, can get tricky there.
So I got a couple guys, and I think the market's too low on. Jamar Chase is the wide receiver 16 in ECR, and I do want to talk about him because right now he's being ranked below like Nico Collins going against the Jets. Which, listen, I get it. Tank Dell is out, but you're talking about now you could essentially treat him like a true, like you could treat Nico Collins like Jamar Chase, and if you're the Jets, so. And just, he's being ranked below some, like DJ Moore, who I think is still a little bit more boomer bust. Olave, I think, is a little more boomer bust. Even a guy like Waddle, who's, a number 2. So, I have Jamar Chase still as a top 10 wide receiver, as a wide receiver 1 this week. And I think, maybe the market will catch up after, more people kind of adjust for him going off on Monday Night Football. But yes, there's some weather in this game, but that's true of, like I said, like half the league. But he's averaging 115 yards on 7.5 catches per game in the 2 Browning starts, 9 targets. Yes, he did have some deflections against Pittsburgh, but Browning seems capable of getting him the ball. And I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. I'm like, hey, I'm not going too low on Chase, because if I'm the Bengals, what am I going to do? I'm just going to figure out ways to get this dude the ball. And I think they're going to continue to do that against a Colts defense that's not terrible, but not great. And this could be a close game that, kind of pressures the Bengals to continue to pass once again. So I don't think we should, like, Chase is not a top 5 guy right now. That's fair, but I don't really think he should be going much lower than, 10 or 11 at wide receiver. And the other guy is Adam Thielen, and he's been quiet, a couple of weeks now. I know Carolina's a dumpster fire, although they did cover. They did get the cover. Came through for us. My first Carolina bet of the year. They cashed my win total the week before. I bet on them the next week, and they covered. So
nice.
Shout out to the Panthers. But the reason I like Thielen in this spot, and I think, if you've been riding him and you might be a little disconcerted and kind of knocking him out, because I see him at 29 in expert consensus. So that means, certain leagues, if you start 2 wide receivers, or even if your team is just stacked, which if you're, heading to the playoffs, it probably is, you might be thinking of benching him. I think he's a solid play this week, because New Orleans plays the second most man coverage, only behind Dallas. And that's been, you would think it would be the opposite. But Adam Thielen's really struggled against zone coverage. And we've seen that with some of these aging wide receivers, right? Like Allen Robinson had the same issue where he was still beating man coverage, but struggling to kind of find the spots in the zones and things like that. And Thielen this year, 1.2 yards per route against zone, 2.4 against man, double. So a team like New Orleans that plays the second most man in the league, you're gonna probably see the more productive version of Adam Thielen. He had 7 catches, 54 yards, and a touchdown in the first meeting. You also have the benefit, as you mentioned, of an indoor game here, which there are going to be a lot of wide receivers that just kind of get knocked down due to the weather, and a lot of passing games. Whereas I know it ain't much in Carolina, but I don't think this is a week where we're expecting a floor game from Thielen. I think this is one of his better spots, in terms of matchup when he averages double his yards per route. So like Thielen, have him as wide receiver 21. So I have him like firmly in that,
Yeah.
bottom low end wide receiver 2 range, whereas a lot of people are ranking him kind of as more of a low end wide receiver 3.
Yeah, and I'm closer to you. He's my wide receiver 22. But if he struggles again this week, I would be concerned with him just sort of falling off.
Yep.
And like I said at the beginning of the year, I thought he'd be Bryce Young's top target in the first half of the season and be Mingo in the second half. I still think I'm going to be wrong on that prediction. But the last 2 weeks, Mingo, he's been the top target by a considerable amount. So hopefully for Thielen's sake, that changes soon. Because it's been a concerning trend. I mean, he is older, right? He's like 33, 34. Like, so it's a concern this late in the season that he's falling off. But I do think he'll bounce back here. But if he doesn't, that's a concern.
Like, I think the next 2 matchups, he should be able to have success in at New Orleans and then home against Atlanta. But in week 16 and 17, Green Bay and Jacksonville are heavy zone teams. So he might get you there. I don't know if he takes you over the top, but he should be able to get you
weeks there.
What's up? Yeah.
Those are championship weeks.
Yeah,
there.
Exactly.
Maybe,
so that might be the
high.
time. I mean, I think most trade deadlines are passed. Yeah. But just kind of if looking ahead, if he's your, let's say, your wide receiver 2 or 3, and you can like kind of, plan ahead, maybe try to make sure you have at least another option for those 2 weeks. But I do think the next 2, he should have his, usual high volume games. All right. Who you on?
It's actually Justin Jefferson. And that's just based on my initial projection for this week. I'm wide receiver 18.
Whoa. Okay.
I'll probably end up closer to you, but at least to start the week, I don't mind being low on him. Obviously, if you have him, welcome back. We're playing him, but I think we should lower expectations because he is, returning from a hamstring injury. So they might be a little bit cautious with them. There's always a risk for re-aggravation. Hamstring injuries are always tricky. Jordan Addison should command a higher target rate this point in the season than when Jefferson, was playing. And TJ Hawkinson's still a target monster. And you kind of alluded to it, but there's just going to be less volume overall without Kirk Cousins. So this is his first start without Kirk Cousins. And I guess I'm assuming Josh Dobbs is the starting quarterback this week. It's going to, he scrambles more. It's going to be fewer pass attempts overall. So there's just less passing yards to go around. There's still a bunch of mouths to feed in this offense. So I think he's probably one of the best receivers in the game still, obviously, but I just view him as more of a solid wide receiver 2 option this week, and then maybe next week back to top 5 status. But I'm just lowering expectations a little bit this week. That's all.
Yeah, I do, like, when we do our we do the flex, our fantasy flex pod for week 14. We'll break down the main slate. Check that out over on the Fantasy Flex channel. I'm gonna talk about him and Dobbs there because I do think there's a way to kind of play him this week.
Interesting.
It's DFS related, but
nice.
Yeah,
he does have a high ceiling if that's your alluding to. If he finishes as a top receiver, I won't be confused. But
the floor is a little more questionable.
Yeah.
Not only because we don't know exactly where he is injury wise, but also because now you're introducing a new quarterback to the equation as well in Joshua Dobbs. And I'll have some Viking. I'll have a kind of Jefferson adjacent prop, but before I get into that, I'm low on Deontay Johnson. He is outside of my top 40 this week against New England, and the last 4 games before Matt Canada was fired, Johnson was in on 97% of the dropbacks. And since Canada's been fired, 85% and 75%. And, he has had some kind of weird moments. I'll put it that way over the last, couple of weeks that maybe might have drawn the ear of his coaching staff. And maybe that's why he got pulled a little bit. But either way, I mean, he's kind of liable to do that. And now you're talking about a total of 30. You're a home favorite against the Patriots. So number one, you have a super low implied team total, even though you're a favorite, it's just 18. Number two, you may be in a positive game script because the Patriots, I mean, they just haven't been able to score on anybody. And then number 3, with Pat Fryermuth back, it's really hard it was hard enough for this offense to support anyone from a fantasy perspective all year, period. I mean, that's what happens when you go, a whole presidential administration without getting 400 yards of total offense. But with Pat Fryermuth in the lineup this year, the games Fryermuth has been active, Deontay Johnson's target rate per route is 21.7%. With Fryermuth out, it jumps to 26%. So, Fryermuth is healthy as far as we know. He's been playing. He's back in the lineup. So I think you have to temper expectations for Johnson. He already has next to no touchdown equity, and the odds of him scoring. He technically should have had one 2 weeks ago, and then he had one last week. The odds of him scoring the third time in a row, pretty low here, and then there's just no other factor that really stands out. The Patriots have been good, limiting opponents, top wide receivers. Really, they're kind of funneling action to, the non-number 1, number 2 wide receivers, things like that. So I just can't get up to wide receiver 33 for Deontay, which is where consensus has him. And you're also, Trubisky has looked worse than Pickett this year. So just a lot of things working against Deontay Johnson here. So he's a guy that if I didn't have to start him, I would. I just think you're kind of tempting fate here, and his yardage has been down over the last month or so, even though he has gotten in the end zone. So yeah, Deontay for me is outside my top 40. All right, let's go not with Justin Jefferson this week, but I think the really interesting and just difficult decision is Jordan Addison. Because somebody has to kind of take a back seat, even if Jefferson's not playing a full complement of snaps, or even if he's not 100%. This is not Kirk Cousins, who was averaging 300 plus passing yards. This is Josh Dobbs. So maybe he has that upside with Jefferson back, but we can't. That's not the median. So curious as to what you're doing with Addison's median, assuming Jefferson does suit up this week. I'll give you 42.5 receiving yards.
Oh, nice. I have him projected for 42, so I say his median's 37.5. I would call it. So I hate betting against him. So I'll go with under. But that nice. Is a good line.
I got you to take an Addison under.
I know I don't like it.
Did not think I would get you to do that.
Yeah, it's going to be Brandon Powell. Well, obviously the biggest decrease in playing time, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they have Addison line up in the 2 wide formations. I don't think he did when Jefferson was healthy. So maybe at this point in his rookie season, he may have leapfrogged KJ Osborne, but again, who knows? So I do agree. I think he has a low floor this week. You're probably not playing him. He's outside my top 45. He would only be a bet on talent, where he's found a way to score touchdowns even when he had limited playing time and targets. So I would only start him if you absolutely have to.
Yeah, and this is, like I said, the Vikings are a really tough projection this week because it's not just Jefferson, it's Jefferson plus the change at quarterback. If it was just reinserting Jefferson, and you had Kirk Cousins there, I think it'd be a lot easier to just project everyone and just go back to what was going on in the first 5 games. But Cousins was playing so well that in the first 5 games, with Jefferson, Addison had 1 game where he didn't catch a pass, but in the other 4, he had at least 52 receiving yards in each game. So that 42 number that we're both projecting is significantly lower than what he was doing with Jefferson. But again, that was with Kirk Cousins. So it's tough. It's tough.
And TJ Hawkinson, just again, a target monster. Yeah. So you have to count for those going to the tight end. And then the wide receivers are fighting over scraps. But yeah, Justin Jefferson, even if he's limited, will obviously command a high target rate. So it's a massive blow to Addison for sure.
All right, tight end, who you got in the top 5?
I got Travis Kelce, George Kittle, TJ Hawkinson, Sam Laporta, and Jake Ferguson.
Yep, exact same.
Oh, really?
Order.
So
yep.
The onesie positions were right in line.
Ferguson just narrowly beats out Dalton Kincaid just because, again, Dak has been playing better than Mahomes. Better than Josh Allen of late. And the Cowboys have a much higher team total, so more touchdown equity for Ferguson, but Kincaid is right there at 6 for me. I think ECR has them flipped, but who you high on?
And Dawson Knox might return this week, which might just
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it though, because
Hmm.
I think congrats to him. I think he just got engaged. But that's the news I'm
Hmm.
seeing. I'm not seeing the news like, oh, he's gonna return. I'm just seeing,
Oh,
he got
okay.
engaged. So
Interesting.
I mean, he could, but I feel like it would have probably been more imminent. So I haven't seen anything that suggests, at least not this week, but who knows? But either way, I mean, I think at this point you're probably gonna kind of ride with this, it's been working for them with Shakir, going back
Oh
to
yeah,
PY. So I
yeah,
don't know if Knox would
exactly.
even come back to his full role. I think Kincaid might kind of stay at his 80% routes run.
Yeah, he should.
But who are you high on at tight end?
I'm doubling down this week on David Njoku. He's my tight end 6 against the Jaguars. So of course, when I finally show the guy some love, he has his worst game of the season, 2 catches for 17 yards. Every tight end is, we got to forgive them for one bad game. Only Travis Kelce, can avoid duds, I guess. But that was his lowest output of the season, and it wasn't even that bad, to be honest. But I think he bounces back this week against the Jags defense that just got torched by Jake Browning. Joe Flacco had signs of rust, but he looked decent, I guess. Maybe they'll be more pass heavy, with him under center, especially this week. And Joku, could see even more targets if Amari Cooper is limited again. It feels like every game he leaves due to injury, so he might miss this week. So that would just lead to more targets for Njoku. I think ECR is just too low on him again here at tight end 11. So again, have to forgive him for his bad game last week. He's right there almost in my top 5 again. He's my tight end 6 to open the week.
Yeah, you're super high. I'm at tight end 9, so I am higher than consensus. But yeah, there is a lot of moving parts with kind of not knowing whether Cooper's in or out, the weather, backup quarterback. So yeah, that's why I'm reluctant to put him above a guy like Taysom Hill or somebody like
Right?
that.
Yeah. To be fair, I would probably start Taysom Hill over him and Kincaid too.
Yeah, exactly.
But like a guy like Evan Ingram with the quarterback situation, that's where it gets dicey.
Yep.
But either way, I think Joku's in that discussion.
Yeah, I have Hill, Kincaid, Hill, and Ingram 6, 7, 8, and then Njoku 9. And then the guy I'm high on is Cole Kmet, who is my tight end 10. And he's the tight end 12 in ECR. So not a massive difference, but tight end, there's not always, especially this time of year, probably not going to have these massive differences in our projections. But I do think Kmet is not quite getting the respect he deserves from this tight end number 12 ranking. He is the tight end 6 on the season in terms of points per game. He has a target rate per route of 20.4%, which is 6th among tight ends on the week 14 slate. And Detroit has allowed 6 touchdown catches to tight ends, which is tied for the 3rd most in the league. So Kmet did have a down game against Detroit a few weeks ago in that matchup, but a lot of times you see those things flip, especially when you're not talking about like a star player. Those guys will usually just ball out no matter what. But sometimes the role players, if they have a bad game in the first division game, they might have a good one in the second one and vice versa. So I'm not too worried about it. With tight ends, you just have to kind of trust the underlying numbers, and can't really get too cute here. So Cole Kmet, top 6 tight end on the season. Don't think he should be outside the top 10 this week, especially with Trey McBride on a bye. He's been kind of filling a top 5 spot this week, and maybe we'll see about Dallas Goedert. But yeah, I think Kmet is startable this week. Who you low on?
Well, I think we might be in agreement here, but I'm low on Pat Freiermuth. He's my tight end 19. And of course, week after looking like prime Gronk, he came crashing back down to earth with a 3-catch, 29-yard game. His route participation stayed just under 70%. So that might be where he stays, for the rest of the season. So it's going to be tough for him to be consistent. Such a low pass volume offense with other mouths to feed. It might not be too big of a drop off from Pickett to Trubisky, but this could be a run heavy game plan for the Steelers because the Patriots probably won't put up many points, so not too much reason to throw here. So yeah, I think Freiermuth, it looked like he was back in the tight end 1 discussion, but this week he's out of it for me all the way down to tight end 19.
Yeah, and a lot of tight end just comes down to routes and touchdown equity. And, with Freiermuth kind of, he used to be a guy that you could get, high 70s, low 80s in terms of the route participation. And, Pittsburgh usually is projected for over 20 points at least. But, these days, it's a struggle. And that Patriot offense, I mean, they held the Chargers to 6 points, and they've lost 3 games where they've held the opponent to 10 points or fewer. So this Patriot defense is nothing to sneeze at. It's just, there's nothing really that to hang your hat on with any Steeler pass catcher. I don't think this week, especially early in the week when there could be some other startable guys that could emerge, especially at a onesie position where you only need to start one player usually, like tight end. So I would not jump the gun, and even if I'm in a 12-team league, and I know the ECR is number 11, but I agree, I'm number 18 at tight end for Freiermuth. So I'd kind of hold off, see what happens, see if you can pick somebody up, or there should be a better option out there than Pat Freiermuth. Cade Otton, for example, is a guy I would start over Pat Freiermuth this week, just because there's a little bit more touchdown equity. You're getting a lot more routes run as well. All right, what do you got for the prop?
We're going with Taysom Hill. So total passing, rushing, and receiving yards, combine them all against the Panthers. This is a fun number to set. I'll let you gather your info here, but I'm setting it at a nice 69.5 yards for Taysom Hill.
Okay, let's see. You said 69.5?
69.5. Yep.
Yeah, I have him. I'm still in the mid 50s. So yeah, I have him significantly lower. He's my tight end 7, but it's a lot of it is touchdown equity. His carries they've been definitely on the upswing. So I am projecting him for more carries than I was earlier in the season. But he's been a little bit kind of high variance. So yeah,
he's the definition of high variance.
Exactly. And I mean, with the way tight end is, especially at this point, I think this is a position where you can afford, even though he does have a low floor, the ceiling is so high. Like his ceiling is, he can put up, like a wide receiver 1 type week. So he's a guy that I think is worth starting with the low floor. That's why I have him number 7, but I still do have his yardage in the mid 50s. I have him, 1.5 catches, and then about in the route, just a little bit over 30 rushing yards. So about 40, just under 50 scrimmage yards, and then like a 6 yards passing. So yeah, not quite at 69 for me.
Yeah, if you remove week 1 where he had 4, I think he was hurt. His season median is 68, which is insane. That
is pretty good.
Right?
But yeah, I mean, I break it down. I'm obviously giving him the share he has of he's getting about 3% of the dropbacks. So I just, whatever that projects out to, it's about like 1 attempt. And then, I think it's the rushing yards. I guess I have him at some yards per carry regression, because I have him like around, I guess I have him 4.8. He's at 4.9, but he's averaging 29 rushing yards per game. I have him over that, and then what's the average?
Yeah, and he gets a lot more in positive game scripts.
Right,
they're facing the Panthers, so that's why I juiced it up a little bit. So I'll take your under action here. I'll take it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I have a pretty significant delta on that actually, so I'm not mad at it. I mean, I hate fading Taysom but he is kind of, he is a floor guy, and he could get like 20 total yards but 2 touchdowns. So
true.
Pass rush and receiving. But yeah, don't bench Taysom this week, guys. Like he's the tight end. Like after Kincaid, there's no tight end I would rather start. And like I would not rather start Ingram. I would not rather start even. I know you have Njoku. I actually would rather Hill, because I think Hill.
I would start him over
ceiling.
him. Yeah.
All right, that's going to do it for our Week 14 NFL player projection episode of the Action Network podcast, presented by BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. For more great fantasy content from Sean and I, be sure to check out our full fantasy preview episode. As I mentioned, that's out now over on the Fantasy Flex podcast channel. If you're into betting, you already know my weekly betting preview episode with Stuckey will be out every Thursday. We've been having a really great season, so if you're into betting, be sure to check that out right here on the Action Network podcast channel. And also be sure to check out the Action Network Discord server if you're interested. Sean is very active on there. You can find the information in the episode description. Sean is on X at @the_oddsmaker. I'm at Chris Raybon. And we're at those same handles on the free award-winning Action Network app. Until next time, let's get this shmoney.